While the transition refers to the point in between turns, initiation refers to the actions or mechanics that begin the new turn. The first move or action the ski racer makes will set up the rest of the turn and ultimately affect the line. Initiation is important because the turn impetus performed will determine the path of the skier's center of mass, which will directly affect their finish time. Hill steepness, gate distance, and offset partially determine the type of turn initiation the ski racer will consciously or subconsciously choose. We will divide initiation into carve, redirect, stivot, and white pass turn initiations. These four methods of modern GS ski racing are found in almost every run. Here at Adelboden, the ski racer demonstrates the first three initiation strategies to meet the challenging terrain and course set. The white pass turn is a hybrid that could be classified within any of the three previous categories, but is included due to one unique and important characteristic of ski racing. That is the importance, it seems to suggest, of moving the center of mass down the hill without regard to traditional turn technique convention. Carving by definition is the tail of the ski following the path made by the tip. To accomplish this, the ski tip excavates a trough that the rest of the ski then follows. This eliminates lateral movement of the ski and results in a clean arced path. Carving is easy to do with modern skis. Tip them to one edge and the ski will essentially make a turn by itself. While easy to say and easy enough for the general public to do, it takes a very skilled skier to impart the ideal amount of edge for the size and shape of the turn desired. The skill in a carved turn comes from the skier's ability to balance, attenuate vibration, adjust gross pressure, and impart fine motor control while resisting large external forces. Rolling the ski onto its edge is not a binary on-off movement, but a constant adjustment between snow and edge, all while accounting for environmental conditions and ski flex parameters. This skill is not seen in the gross movements, although they are essential, but in the fine movements, or even in just the muscular tension, holding and releasing, and holding and readjusting, to maintain the desired amount of edge angle between the ski and the snow. When the ski carves a track in the snow, it does just that. It makes a trough in the snow. This track is plowed out with the ski tip, and overplowing or overzealous carving of the ski tip will slow the ski down, essentially pushing too much snow. The truly great ski racer has an intuition as to how much tip pressure to apply and when to reduce it and when to let it off. This skill is not easily acquired, and without a clock is virtually impossible for even the most astute coach to see. While there is a lot we cannot see, there are specific gross movements that the ski racer must possess and exhibit. The initiation movements inherent to GS technique are in fact indigenous to all ski racing, and it could be simplified even further by saying that they are just intrinsic aspects of balance. A bold statement, but the ability to balance is directly related to the fine motor movements that the extraordinary ski racer possesses. Without exceptional balance, the ski racer could not perform the imperceptible control required to manage the needed interaction between ski and snow. Balance in the three cardinal planes consists of turn initiation movements. In the sagittal plane, a forward movement of the center of mass on the ski. In the frontal plane, a release of the ski edge with lateral movement. And in the horizontal plane, a concurrent rotary movement with the upper and lower body parts. When these three actions are performed in unison and combined with intensity of movement to counter the external forces, there is a synergistic equilibrium created that results in the skier being able to exert the appropriate amount of edging and pressure between the ski and the snow. A general heuristic is that these three actions must occur in unison. If they occur in any order, there may be a breakdown in technique. A mnemonic for these three movements in the three cardinal planes is: a movement forward is ball, a lateral movement is fall, and rotation is wall. You should also notice that these three movements fit with the three skiing skills. A movement forward is a pressure control skill. A lateral movement coincides with the skill of edging, and the rotation of all or parts of the body on the horizontal plane is a rotary skill. Since these three movements are all happening simultaneously, the all mnemonic could be used for movement analysis. If the observer can see or pick out an order to the movements, then the overall motion in the three planes will not be as fast as it could have been. This is extremely important if you remember back when we suggested that all actions happen within one ski length or 1/10 of a second. In conclusion, the initiation of carving is exemplified by three simultaneous movements that coincide with the three cardinal planes. At the same time, the skier repositions his center mass forward while the ski is rolled onto edge, while simultaneously rotating the lower half of the body in the turn direction. All three of these movements happen at the same time. A carved turn and a redirected turn have the same carved conclusion. The difference is in the initiation. While a carved turn goes directly onto an edge, a turn with redirection has more rotary, which, as the name suggests, redirects the ski prior to it being edged. This redirection enlarges the turn radius so the ski can be realistically carved. Here would be a traditional line. If this line cannot be held during a carved turn, an option would be to redirect the skis at the turn initiation and change the turn radius. With a slight redirect, the turn size or radius is enlarged. The red line, which represents the redirected turn, has a larger radius compared to the black, all carved turn. The smaller turn radius of the black line has been expanded to a more manageable, larger turn radius of the redirected red line. Increasing the turn radius tames the turn so that the carved arc will fit within the new parameters. Of course, this is all dependent upon the ski racer's skill level and equipment setup. Redirection is a skill that takes place when the ski is neither on its old edge or its new edge, but flat against or slightly off the snow. A flat ski, or a ski slightly off the snow, is capable of redirection without undue friction from the snow. At this instant, the ski can either continue to roll onto its new edge, or it can remain flat for an instant while it is redirected in the direction of the new turn. Here is a slight redirection, often seen at Alta Badia. Redirection can be accomplished several ways: flattening the skis, up motion of the center mass, retraction of the legs, down motion of the center mass, and terrain. And any combination of these. An important aspect of the redirect is that it does not create undue friction against the snow. We will see these bullet points again in the Stivet section, as the skis will have to be redirected and released with similar goals. A takeaway message should be that there are many shades of gray with the technique. There is not one way to redirect, nor would there be 100% consensus as to whether a ski racer should redirect or not. This is contingent upon the ski racer at the time and the skills he possesses. Also, equipment could be a consideration. A certain setup might be working better for one ski racer than another. A carved turn takes a prerequisite amount of space in which to complete, so redirection is in response to not having enough room to make a complete carved turn, taking a straight line, steep hill, a hard, consistent snow. In conclusion, redirecting changes the distance the ski will travel, gets the ski into the fall line sooner, makes an arc of larger turn radius, or may increase or decrease friction between the ski and snow. The word stivet is most likely a contraction of steer and pivot. Stivet, or similar terms, are used to describe a turn where the skier goes very straight at the gate and then pivots the skis, resulting in a considerable ski attack angle. The ski attack angle is the angle between the path the skier's center mass is traveling and the direction the skis are pointed. This makes stivets quite a contradiction, since skis pointed sideways are usually a braking action, but the clock shows us this method can be fast. For many years, coaches have thought that the gold standard of going fast was the carved turn. The better or more carved the turn, the faster the ski racer. This fact in its entirety has to be rethought. The premise of a carved turn being fast was correct. The problem was it might not hold true in all cases. Carved turns require some distance in which to be carved. This can be seen by the size of the radius they leave in the snow. When the hill gets steep, actual carving becomes very space intensive and the resultant line or arc between gates becomes longer. Stiveting solved the distance dilemma by going straight, but introduced a few quandaries of its own. A couple of the major advantages and disadvantages between a carved turn and a stiveted turn should be pointed out. The carved turn has less ski snow friction, but takes a longer line. Meanwhile, the stivet has a shorter line, but can create more ski snow friction. Less friction, more friction, shorter line, and longer line. They could almost cancel each other out. And in fact, they just might on average. But races are won by hundredths of a second. Where could the ski racer gain an advantage? If we look at the advantages and disadvantages over different hill steepnesses, we might be able to reduce some of the disadvantages and increase some of the advantages. On a steep slope, the increased friction between the ski and snow during the stivet might be partially canceled out by the steep slope, where the ski racer can overcome some of the friction by the increased influence of gravity. While on the flatter slopes, ski racers already ski a very straight line, not leaving much more to straighten out. Therefore, we could make a general rule that seems to coincide with what we already see. That stiveting takes place more on the steeper sections, while carving takes place on the flatter sections of the racecourse. Let's take a moment here to interject a coaching point. It is easy to see that carving takes edging, and to perform carving optimally, it takes edging skills. Stiveting, as we will see, involves more rotary than edging, but don't be misled. Stiveting requires tremendous edging skills also. It could be argued that stiveting takes even more edging skills than in carving. Edging skills not in the sense that more is better, but in the ability to lessen the amount of edge, reducing it to zero edge angle, thereby creating a flat ski against the snow. This is essential to an efficient stivet. While extremely steered or pivoted skis are the hallmark of the stivet, there are subtleties that are essential to the successful stivet. There are two distinctively different mechanisms in which to rotate or stivet the skis. They differ by the origin of their impulse, which is how the rotation is initiated. One rotary impulse comes from the snow, the other from the upper body. Which one gets used depends upon where the stivet is initiated in the turn, the snow characteristics, and terrain. Rotation of the ski has to originate somewhere. If there is adequate time between gates and snow that will support a strong edge, the impulse can come from the snow. With leg extension from an edge ski, the skier rotates in the direction of the new turn. While generating a rotation, there can be a simultaneous liftoff from the snow, creating a light phase where the skis may be entirely off the snow or grazing slightly above it. Either way, the goal is to reduce friction between the ski and the snow, while the skier's center of mass takes a direct line toward the new turn. The same impulse may be assisted by terrain, such as a small undulation between the gates, which will provide the liftoff. The liftoff and the rotation of the stivet have to coincide. If the liftoff happens prior, the turning impulse will have to originate in the upper body, which is an entirely different mechanism. The rotary impulse can also come from the skier's upper body. The upper body creates a foundation for the lower body to rotate against. It is that third law from Newton, action-reaction. The action in this case is the upper body, creating a support to rotate against. The reaction is the lower body turning against this stable upper body. In the other method, when the snow provided the impetus, the snow was the foundation, or action, as Newton would say, in which to rotate against. Turning against the upper body is also used when the base of support is minimal. This could either be from an impenetrable surface in which the ski edge will not engage, or the turns stacking up, leaving minimal time to reorient the skis. Since turning against the upper body does not require an edge engagement, friction imposed from the edge set will not be present. While this is good news, it must also be pointed out that stiveting by nature can create friction. To reduce the friction from sliding or stiveting sideways, the ski racer needs to keep a very flat ski. This, along with leg retraction or down and weighting, will reduce the pressure against the snow, reducing the friction. These methods require superior edging skills with superb timing. Stiveting is very complex. While it may be presumptuous to suggest stiveting as a premeditated tactical choice to an athlete, having the skills and the reactionary reflex to perform a stivet is an essential prerequisite for when the occasion arises. Even though stiveting is seen mostly at the elite levels where snow conditions are most uniform, it does not preclude young athletes from learning the prerequisite skills. In fact, these stiveting skills are from the same pool of skills that we see in all ski racing. Command and mastery of these skills is essential. The gross stiveting skills are edging and rotary. Pressure is involved, that seems to be mastered via edging and rotary proficiency. Exercises such as side slips, pivots, hockey stops, side slips with edge sets, pivot slips, garlands, pivot slips with a pole tap in a corridor, slow pivot slips in large moguls, edge releases in large radius turns, and whirlybirds are just some examples that will enhance the athlete's rotary skills while also involving edging skills. As mentioned previous, rotation of the skis comes from two different sources. It can come from countering or reversing the upper body direction, as seen when the upper body looks stable, or it can come from the impulse produced by pushing from the snow, creating the rotation. To encourage a stable upper body, so the lower body can rotate, can be found in pivot exercises in a corridor or just down the fall line. The inability of the athlete to stay within these narrow spaces during the pivot or side slip is indicative of an upper body that is rotating in the same direction as the lower body, as opposed to against or in the opposite direction of the lower body. Even though the upper body appears quiet in space, it is turning relative to the lower body. An active, even though not seen, upper body is essential to performing the pivot slips while staying in the corridor. This is a great drill with an automatic feedback system. To create a rotary impulse from the snow, practice drills such as leapers and airplane turns. Also, fun aerials such as twisters and helicopters will establish their rotation from the snow. These full-body rotary movements are more intuitive and require a different rotary impulse than the countering types previously mentioned. These first three methods, carve, redirect, and stivot, may be viewed as a continuum, where edging is dominant on one side and rotary is dominant on the other. Large amounts of edging relative to the other skills will result in a more carved turn, while at the other end of the spectrum, rotary will be the dominant impetus for the stivot turns. You can also see in the middle that the turn that is redirected will contain varying amounts of edging and rotary. With the redirect turn being the hybrid between carved and stivot, it is not surprising that the redirect is most effective on slopes that are between steep and flat. The white pass turn refers to an unconventional initiation where the new turn is started on the old outside, new inside ski. Some may think of it as a late weight transfer. The white pass turn was named after the ski area in Washington State where the very successful ski racing mare twins grew up. According to the mares, it was not really meant to be a technique, but was in response to tight gates stacking up where there just wasn't enough time to make a proper weight transfer. Today, we are still hesitant to call it a technique, but it is seen so often it does tell something about the turn transition skills that elite ski racers possess. Conventional turning technique dictates the weight transfer happen during the turn transition when one turn ends and the next begins. The white pass turn transition omits or delays this weight transfer. This suggests something rather important, that the time-honored weight transfer may not totally be necessary at turn initiation, and the ability to release with the old turning ski is rather significant. While we don't want to promote athletes initiate turns on their old outside, new inside ski, we do want athletes to possess the skills needed to perform this run-saving move. Making a turn with the conventional weight transfer at the transition requires a platform or edge in which to transfer the weight. A turn made from the old outside, new inside ski eliminates this edge or platform, which partly explains why it provides an immediate initiation, which is why it appeared in the first place, to expedite a turn when it seemed there would not be enough time. This might suggest that the weight transfer takes time away from the turn transition and elite skiers will sacrifice this weight transfer for a more immediate movement of the center of mass down the hill. While it does seem to accelerate the center of mass into the turn, it should be pointed out that it does sacrifice the opportunity for early pressure in the turn. Although not a technique, the white pass turn does provide some insight into essential transition skills. Releasing the ski with the old outside, new inside foot is a proficiency that needs to be mastered by aspiring ski racers. Skiing on one ski, especially without poles, may stimulate this turning impetus. With the prerequisite movement patterns garnered, the ski racer will employ the white pass turn not so much as a turn transition technique, but a tool to be used when situations warrant.